Hi there, Kate Floss, citizen, unqualified lawyer, citizen, unqualified journalist, citizen, unqualified preacher, citizen, unqualified anything, because the people in power, they're all qualified and none of them are doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. So today I've got a fantastic video letting you know all the people that need to be held accountable. Now, first of all, I want to, before I go into the video, I'll just give in my things. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got around about 723 viewers. But if I get 1,000 viewers, I'm allowed to share the screen and go live on YouTube. And you can come in and visit me, and we can do the videos together. But right now I can't because I don't have the 1,000 subscribers. If you want to help Kate Floss, click that like and subscribe today. Right, very, very good. Next thing, I have to give a big shout out to the Oreo team. The Oreo team's still with me, but we don't see them very often because, as you know, I'm Kate Floss, living over here in Thailand and fighting for New Zealand, Australia, Scotland, Ireland, and England. I'm fighting over here in exile. And the Oreo team is right there based in New Zealand. And I don't like to put them up anymore because it's gotten a bit dangerous. When you look at all these characters that are in our parliament, from Rishi Sunak to Trudeau to Albanese to the Ardurns, to all of them that are in our parliaments, and they're all just doing what they're told to do. I've come to realise that they are all just doing what they're told to do, and so they just all are, and they get involved in there, and they're really nothing. But I mean, it's the people. We've got to stand up with our 1688 Bill of Rights. It's called the Will and Mary. It came out in 1688, and it was always designed. The fact of the matter is that in Parliament, the fact of the matter is that they cannot be trusted to peer review each other. They can't. And this is what had happened way back in the times of the Magna Carta. All the politicians, all the bishops, all the priests, all the important people that owned all the lands, all the landlords, they all came up with this cockamamie scheme that they were going to judge each other in their own causes, and that was going to stop them from hurting the people and damaging the people. It all went pear-shaped, and all that they did was made mates with each other. One guy did something wrong and another guy did something wrong, and the two of them got together and he said, I know you did that, so you can't fire me. The other one said, I know you did that, so you can't fire me either. And so they both ended up there and the people were suffering. That's why in 1688 they gave us a will and Mary, the will of Almighty God, and they brought in the Princess of Orange, and they said that you will be accountable just like everybody else in the eyes of God. Everyone will be accountable, from the queens to the kings to the popes to the parliamentarians. They gave us this 1688 will and Mary, and it gave us the right to call our ministers to the court and hold them to account. And we are supposed to be allowed to do that for free, and they're not allowed to prosecute us. It says that we have the right to petition the king, and that all prosecutions and commitments for doing so are illegal. What does that mean? That means that when you have a question of law and you're questioning if the ministers have been doing their job correctly, that means that you can call them to the court, and if you were wrong, they have to explain themselves to you. And if you were wrong about what you had said to them, and they've explained themselves to you, they can't prosecute you back. They're not supposed to be able to prosecute you back. And why can't they prosecute you back? Because we as taxpayers already pay them. We pay them huge, huge salaries. Jacinda Ardern and Chris Hipkins, they're on something like $400,000, like $40,000 a week, plus. And so part of their job is that they have to be able to be held accountable to the people that pay for them. It's not enough to just step down, all right? And we have to be able to call them into the court, hold them to account, and they should be able to front up in the court and show that they're not doing the things that you said that they did. And we pay, see, when they come to the court. So I had to jump in there when I was doing it before the internet went out. So that was a pre-record, and then this is the real me here. So what we're saying is that why it says that we have the right to prosecute them, to call them to the court. Since we already pay all their salaries, then we shouldn't have to pay them to call them into the court to hold them to account. And they're not allowed to prosecute us for it either. And that's because if it's a civilian and you call them to the court and you've accused them and they've done nothing wrong, they're entitled to get compensation from you for the amount of time that they had to come to the court, for the lawyers that they had to pay, and for the time off from their job, and plus some compensation for their inconvenience. But that's not the same as the people in our parliament, because the people in our parliament, we already pay them. We already paid for the parliament. We already pay their salaries. And so the only thing, when they come in, when we've called them into the court, they're not allowed to prosecute us back because they do not have to personally pay any of their lawyers. The time that they're coming to the court is already paid by us. So we already paid them for all of these things. And that's why they're not allowed to, not supposed to prosecute us back, because we already paid. And that's all comes into the package of their job. And if they didn't do anything wrong, at least they can go back and look at what it was that concerned us and make those things clear to the public. They're supposed to be working for the public, and part of working for the public is they're supposed to front up at the court when we ask them to and explain themselves to us. Now, I'm just going to go through a long list of the people in the last few months. Some of them, I did do a big Roastbusters video a long time ago. Glorius, I've done the Menendez, I've done Alpito Williams CO, I've done Chris Farfoy, dozens upon dozens. It doesn't matter whether they're national, it doesn't matter whether they're Labour, it doesn't matter which party that they come from. They have got ministers, it may not be them, but they've got ministers that are coming in that are never ever held to account for their actions, and this is why I'm calling this in. Now, the first one that I'm going to call in for you is this guy here. Now, this, I'll just put him up for a wee minute. I don't want to get into trouble for copyright things, but this was a man called Michael Wood. I've got a lot to get through, so I'll just have to read them through quickly. So this is from Stuff magazine, and the lady that's the journalist was Anna White. Michael Wood was asked 12 times to sell the shares in the Auckland Airport Transport by June the 7th, 2023. Michael Wood was the transport minister, and he and his wife had shares in the Auckland Airport, where he was allocating government funds to the Auckland Airport, and the cabinet had asked him since 12 times since 2020, he had been asked to remove his share. Wood's wife is an Auckland councillor, an Auckland council in the family. Julie Fairley, she's a beneficiary. She's a beneficiary of the trust that owns airport shares in a managed fund. He declined an application from the North Shore Aerodrome, had made an application to get their status as an aerodrome, and because that aerodrome would have competed with the Auckland Airport that his wife has got beneficiary shares in, and that he himself has got shares in, he turned down the aerodrome. So that there, and then not only that, he was also the Minister of Immigration. There's that immigration again. And he had not disclosed that he had shares in a telecommunications company, a banking company, and that he he included their technicians on an immigration list called a Greens list. And he did that after the company that he had shares in had asked him to put all of their technicians onto the immigration Greens list. They had asked him, and he had said, yes, you can do that if that's going to make more money for you and for me too, didn't you, Michael Wood? So that's Michael Wood. Now, we'll just say that all of these things are alleged. I did get them from stuff, but these are all alleged things. But I will tell you that he has been asked to step down. But Prime Minister Chris Hipkins, he says, but I'm going to leave the door open for Michael Wood's return. So now you're going to see this through all these names. Basically, this is from RNZ. Basically, what happens is they do wrong in the Parliament, and Parliament says that if you fix that, you can come back to Parliament. But you see, this is not the case. See, over here in Thailand, we had a young chap that was he was running to be the Prime Minister, and he was invested in shares, and the Prime Minister over here in Thailand said, you're invested in those shares, so even though you've been voted in, you cannot enter Parliament. You see, this is the problem. The thing is, if you are outside of Parliament and you are running for Parliament and you've got those shares and then you don't sell those shares, but if your party wins or whatever, that kind of thing, this man here you're supposed to relinquish the shares before you join the party. That's what you're supposed to do. You relinquish the shares, and then if your party doesn't win, especially with MMP, if your party doesn't win, then you can go back and buy back the shares, or you can do whatever it is. But this is even actually worse, that they're not relinquishing the shares before they go into the party. Then the party wins, they enter Parliament, they're keeping all their shares, and when they're getting caught out in Parliament, they're still not relinquishing their shares. That's a crime. That's a crime there. That's a deception to the public. It's lying to the public. It's deceptive to the public. And Chris Hipkins has said that he can come back. So there you go. That's the state of things. The next person, Stuart Nash. Stuart Nash. Now this story here is from I think it's from the RNZ1 News again. And Stuart Nash, he emailed 2 contacts of his regarding a commercial rent relief package that Cabinet had considered. Nash opposed the decision, so obviously the Cabinet had made the decision that the relief package on these rentals was not going to be given. And Nash was in Parliament, Stuart Nash was in Parliament, and he had opposed that, and then he contacted Troy Belker and Greg Loveridge from GRL Holdings, who had both donated to Stuart Nash's political campaign. Stuart Nash was demoted, but he retained his economic development, and he's already manipulating. He's just said in there that he had opposed the decision, and not only that, he revealed to his 2 people that had donated to them, he revealed to those 2 people each position that each of the Cabinet members had taken. He revealed it to them. So those ones that opposed, so it would have been any of those that had perhaps received money under the table and then voted against them anyway. Stuart Nash was the narc that went along and told them who opposed them, so they would have been able to go to those people to claim any under the table money that he had been given back. So nobody seems to think that there's anything wrong with what he did. But you know what? Listen to me. I'll tell you something. I have been a criminal, and a criminal knows a criminal. Now, I would never enter Parliament because I have been a criminal, so I wouldn't enter Parliament because I don't deserve to be there, quite frankly. When you go and commit crimes against the rights of the people, you lose your rights. You lose your rights to be a policeman. You lose your rights to be a parliamentarian. You lose your rights to work in any government department. You lose all those rights forever, and I accept that. So, he didn't even get thrown out of Parliament. He only got demoted. He retained his economic development. He retained the fisheries, and he retained the forestries for what he did. Yeah, even though he said that he received political donations from that company, and he said that he voted in favour of the thing that company wanted, and then he also went and revealed to that company all the people that voted against it. That's Stuart Nash. Next, who's next on our list? Getting to the good ones now. Going to get to the good ones. Of course, we're all waiting for old Meng Foon. This is the New Zealand Herald, and this was a story. I think this is the one that was done by Adam Pearce. So this is the New Zealand Herald, and it's the former now, because they finally kicked him out, although they tried to keep him in, but they couldn't for much longer. Now, he finally accepted. Now, what did he do? He accepted more than $2 million. Now, he was working as the race relations, but he was also working as the very high up in the Human Rights Commission, and he was the one that was pivotal in the emergency housing, and who was going to get funding for the emergency housing and all of these things. So he had received he owned a company. He and his wife both owned a company, which was a housing company, and he had received $2 million over a 5-year period to be allocated to his hotels, and to be allocated over his. He had 5 units that he was renting out for emergency housing. Now, if you go and look it up, that place there is almost, I don't know what the season is, but when I looked at the place that he rents out, it's renting out for around about between $150 and $200 a day. So for 5 units, he was receiving around about $1,000 or about $1,000 a day for his 5 units, which equated to around about $28,000 to $35,000 a month, guaranteed in his little place that he's got, and he didn't disclose it, and then he was accused of breaching the Crown Entities Act, and then that's this one here, and he got the $2 million. Now let's see here. So Let's see if there's another one here. We did. Oh, so this is from the Human Rights Commission. That he said okay, so this one tells a little bit more about it. This is about he was resisting the resignation. It had received here it is. Foon is the director of My Gold Investments, a company trading as Tartapori Bay Accommodation. It received more than $2 million from the government to provide emergency housing between 2019 and 2023. Well, $2 million, he only gives them 5 units, and he got it from 2019, which is, I believe it was August 2019 to now August 2023. So 2019, 2020, 2021, 22. So he's received around about almost $500,000 a year for 5 units. So he's received basically, if you can calculate on a very rough estimate, 100,000 almost per year per unit, which is around about perhaps $10,000 a month per unit that he's receiving, around about there. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. I don't think that I don't know. But anyway, and his wife is also invested in those companies. Now, Meng Foon, we've got a long story. So that's number 1 for Meng Foon. Here's number 2 for Meng Foon. Meng Foon gave political donations to a woman called Kiri Allan. Kiri Allan is the Justice Minister, and he gave those political donations to her before she entered Parliament. Now, we're going to get to her in a minute, but she didn't disclose it to the Parliament when she entered Parliament that she had received these donations from him. So what is Meng Foon said here? What he's basically saying is not only is he in a government position at the Human Rights Office where he is in charge or has something to do with the allocation of the funding to the emergency housing, and he has allocated himself or through various processes to get $2 million for those things. And he believes that he did disclose it, but it really doesn't matter whether he disclosed it or not. It never should have happened. He's not being transparent, and he should not be entitled to any of that money at all, no matter whether he disclosed it or not. And what he has basically said there is, yes, I'm giving political donations to ministers that are about to go into Parliament. I'm giving the donations before they go into Parliament, you see. And so that is a conflict of interest right there. Then he said that when he gave that donation, when he did so he gave it before she became the minister, and she was responsible, well, she's the Justice Minister, and she was going to be responsible for the Human Rights Commission as Justice Minister. And before she came in, he gave donations to her. He doesn't seem to think that there's anything wrong with that. Now, as for the emergency housing, this is Paul Hunt. Now, you're going to go and research Paul Hunt, and then you go and research Paul Hunt's wife, who spends a lot of her time over in Israel. I did do a video on them, and she also spends a lot of her time over in Scotland at the Human Rights Commission over in Scotland. Well, Paul Hunt has kept it. He says he wrote the letter to say that Meng Foon says that he disclosed it because he said that he had MSD, emergency housing, on his list of things that might be of conflict. And he said that the Human Rights Commissioner, Paul Hunt, did not send that on to say that there would be a problem with that. So Meng Foon more or less says, well, Paul Hunt said that he didn't say that I could do it, but he didn't say that I couldn't do it either, and he did not decide to investigate it. That should be Paul Hunt's job gone right there. Now, getting back to Kiri Allan and the donations that he paid, all right, we'll go back to Kiri Allan. And so these are, now we're going to be moving on to Kiri Allan, Justice Minister. Now, who is this from? Meng Foon did not register. He and his wife made the donations of $1,500 to her campaign. And a company that they are invested in called 888 Investments provided rent subsidy worth $9,185 also for Kiri Allan. Now, Kiri Allan, Justice Minister, Meng Foon and his wife Yin Foon donated the $1,500 from the 888 property investments, but they seem to think that this makes it all right, but it makes it worse. They said that the pair also donated $1,000 to the National Party's East Coast branch last election. So as Justice Minister, she would have been responsible for the Human Rights Commission, and she should have declared. Now we're getting on to her. So he seems to. So this is just goes to show the people that are over in that filthy, corrupt Human Rights Commission. That is, you want to think the New Zealand Parliament is corrupt? I tell you, that Human Rights Commission in New Zealand has got to be the most corrupt government department that ever showed its face on the shores of our country. It is filled with filth that make political donation after political donation after underhanded payments, so all of their things that they want gets paid for. And do you know what? None of what they do is accountable because it is an outside entity. It's not part of Parliament. We can hold Parliament to account, but the Human Rights Commission, all their monies and all the money that goes through them is considered to be separate, and they are considered to be a separate entity, and they are allowed to make their own decisions with their own money. And do you know what? We are not allowed to question it. That Human Rights Commission is a shocking. So they made the donations. Now, Meng Foon has admitted that he's made donations to National. He's admitted that he's made donations to Kiri Allan, the Justice Minister. He's admitted that he's involved with government policy of allocating funding to a business that he is a party to. So now let's get to Kiri Allan now. So Kiri Allan, what does it say? I have to be careful about which one because I need one that says about Chris Hipkins. Hang on, let me just get that one. Because this is a very important one. About Chris Hipkins. Oh, I can never find this one. There's so many. Where did I put it? Okay, just wait for a minute. I'll put on some music for you while you. No, I won't. Oh dear, I've lost my thing now. I know. Lost everything. Right, I'll put that there. And I'll put that there. All right, I'm not a professional news reporter, so I do get these things mixed up a wee bit. But what I just wanted to show you was here under Kiri Allan is that the appointment to the after having it's funny here, whenever they're trying to get out of their little weebly things, they transfer into their into another language. So the Human Rights Commission, which is now called Te Kahui Tika Tangata, the Human Rights Commission is grabbing on to the New Zealand Maori so that every time that these issues of their corruption and their theft of all the billions and billions of dollars of New Zealand taxpayer money, do you know what? Every time they want to get out of it, they're going to call in the Maori card and they're going to say, but we are tika tangata, and all of that, and they'll be saying, you're racist, when you're not. Now, she had accepted, the Justice Minister had accepted the $1,500 and the $9,100, and then Prime Minister, here, this is what I wanted to show you. Now, she went, Kiri Allan, okay, I've got my place now. Kiri Allan went into the Parliament and she did not disclose that she had received all of this money from Meng Foon, right? Now, the money that she received from Meng Foon, who knows how much she received under the table? We will never, ever know if there was a brown envelope under the table. We only know that there was that, and then that can come up for taxes because you have to disclose money for taxes, but it just depends why they did that. There may have been an under-the-table payment. And when you're running, listen to me, when you're running a hotel and everybody knows about the old hotel scam where you've got two books. One book is your tax book and the other books is the books that is just for you and the family members. Everybody knows about these two books, and you know that you put enough. So if you were to put, say, $35,000 that you had received in your funding from the government office, and you were to put that as a tax, might even get a tax write-off off of it, but you put that as, and then you added a few of those rooms to be used for your tax purposes, and then if you had another few rooms that were not used for tax purposes, and you got all that money in your hand, and if you happened to put that into a brown envelope, and that happened to go under the table, but you disclosed the $9,000 and the $1,500 and all of that. You know, it depends on your thinking. You could justify that and you could calculate that as being perfectly fine. But here now we have Chris Hipkins, who's got an in on it, just like Paul Hunt got in it. And Paul Hunt turned this way and he turned that in. Paul Hunt said, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. And then Chris Hipkins come in and Chris Hipkins said, do you know what, Chris Hipkins, it gets even worse. He says, technically, the $1,500 that you're allowed to receive donations up to $1,500 without declaring it. Or if you have $1,500 or more, you have to declare it. And Chris Hipkins said, technically, she had to receive $1,500.01, and then she would have had to disclose it. But since she didn't receive the 1 cent, she didn't have to disclose it. But Chris Hipkins, what about the other $9,000 in rental subsidies that she received from another company that both Meng Foon and his wife Ying Foon are involved with? What about that? So then that goes over the $1,500 if you talk about same companies, same people, and two lots of money. One is $1,500 and one is $9,000. Wow. And then how much goes under the table? Chris Hipkins, you should step down simply based on that comment, because you, Chris Hipkins, and you, Paul Hunt, are justifying the criminals in Parliament. You're saying to them, if you can just tweak it a bit. So Chris Hipkins, you should step down as well. Now, we're not finished with Kiri Allan. No. Kiri Allan, our Justice Minister, right? Our Justice Minister turns up, well, she'd taken several leaves. She turns up, this is from The Guardian. The last story, I should tell you, the last story, I don't think I've got it, but the last story was by a man called the New Zealand, that we had the New Zealand Herald, which was from Adam Pearce, and then we also had the New Zealand Herald from Thomas Coughlan on the 21st of April 2003. So just recognising the New Zealand Herald and the authors, which were Thomas Coughlan and Adam Pearce. Okay, so we must recognise the authors of these stories. And then this story has come from The Guardian here, and I don't know who is the author of the story, but this story is from The Guardian, and the photograph was by Hagan Hopkins. All right, now Kiri Allan turns up drunk, yes, drunk, and she crashed. Now, what they're trying to hide now, when the first story came out, is this is the first story and it's disappeared now. So that's why I'm putting these things up here, because these stories, now that they're digitally done and they're not done on paper anymore, you'll go and see a story and you'll come back 5 minutes later, the story's either gone or it's been altered, it's been rewritten, and these stories are just disappearing. So I'm putting them up on the Kate Floss's videos so that we can hold them all to account and keep them held to account. Now, Kiri Allan, what the first story is, she was actually driving a government tax-paid electric vehicle, allegedly. Now, it may come down that she wasn't, but allegedly she was driving her government-paid electric vehicle when she had the accident, when she was drunk. She was drunk with an excess breath alcohol between 250 and 400 mc of alcohol. To my very limited understanding, she's allowed 80. So she's well and truly over the limit. All right, she's well and truly over the limit. She's drunk, she crashes, and because of the donation scandal, she'd taken a week off, and she had said to Chris Hipkins, I've got mental health issues, my relationship's broken up, I've got mental health issues, I've got dependency issues, and this is the Justice Minister, yeah. And she says, I've got dependency issues, and she said, I need to take a break for my mental health. That's only like a couple of weeks after she came into the Parliament, after they had to remove Chris Farfoy from the Parliament. Chris Farfoy also was known for manipulating the immigration system. Chris Farfoy, they removed him from the immigration because he manipulated the immigration, and then he was the Associate Minister of Immigration, and they removed him from the immigration, along with removing that Woods guy who was the Minister of the Immigration. They're probably both in there together. and then Chris Farfoy gets put out, and then Jacinda Ardern rehired him back, and instead of, he didn't get rehired back as Associate Minister of the Immigration because he couldn't do that because he'd already been thrown out of that position. So they hired him back as the Minister of Immigration. And he's recently stepped down because I called him into court over it. I have called him into court, and he stepped down immediately before I've gotten him to the court. So we don't know if he's ever going to get there, but These are the things that are going on in our parliament. And the incident, so she had this accident, and I wanted to show you some of the cars that were in this accident. I think where have I got the cars in the, oops. So I can't show the cars in the accident, but if I just put in there Kiri Allan's accident, okay, so I'll put in there Kiri Allan's accident like that, and then you can just go to the images. And so here is a picture of the car, not this one down here. This is not the picture here. This is from another place. But this one here is the picture, okay? And hang on, I'll just outsize it a bit. I think I can outsize it here, can I? Right, I'll just put it up there. So here is the picture here of the car, which is, it's not that car. It's not that car there. I'll put in Kiri Allan's car crash. Oh, and then we'll go, and then there's the images. That a lot of, here it is. So they're trying, these images, there are a lot more images, so you need to go and take pictures of these images, because I think that they're trying to hide this car here. I think that you should go and look at what the government cars look like, and if the government cars look like this one here, she was driving a government-paid, taxpayer car, the Justice Minister of New Zealand, and she crashed it into this vehicle and caused this big accident. And nobody seems to think that there's anything wrong with that. So keep an eye out, because they are removing these pictures as fast as what you can see. In fact, this car here was up on there and you could see the full car, but now all you can see is the wheel. So they're getting rid of these pictures ASAP. But that's our Justice Minister. So that's not all. There's more coming up on the Justice Minister. So we've got Meng Foon, and he's collecting his donations, and then we've got this car crash, that the drunken minister with the car crash, and then we're going to move on to Tory whānau. So we've got the drunken Justice Minister, all nicely drunken and enjoying being over the limit, while all the rest of us go to the prison for causing an accident. She's been charged with reckless driving and driving over the limit and some other charges. Should be while she's in a government car as well. Surely there must be some other charges. All of these things, and Chris Hipkins is defending her. And now we've got this Tory whānau. Now, Tory whānau is the Wellington mayor. And if she's the Wellington mayor, if she can make Wellington mayor, she's coming up for being Parliament. Now, Tory whānau, the Wellington mayor, she walked into a restaurant. Now, this story is by Vita Molyneux and Azaria Howell in the New Zealand Herald, this was. And you can see here, what had happened was she was sitting there, pissed as a fart, and she was sitting at a table next to another table, and the table that was next to her became empty, and there was still a half bottle of wine or a bottle of wine sitting on the table next to her. And then Tory whānau, the Wellington mayor, our Wellington mayor, New Zealand Wellington mayor, goes up to the table, grabs the bottle of wine, walks out of the restaurant with the bottle of wine. right? And then as she walks out of the restaurant, the man asks her to give back the bottle of wine. And then after she gives it back, and after she walks away, he realizes that she could, well, apparently it is overheard, and it is only apparently, but apparently it is overheard that she said, "Do you know who I am?" And he probably should have said, "Yes, I know. You're the Wellington mayor, and you're here pissed as a fart stealing a bottle of wine from another table where the people had left that you had no right to steal." Because that's stealing. It's still stealing. If you didn't pay for it, Tory Whanau, if you didn't pay for it and it was sitting there on a table belonging to the restaurant and the people didn't take it, then the bottle belongs to the restaurant. It doesn't belong to you, Tory Whanau. So when you picked it up and you walked out of the door, Tory Whanau, the Wellington mayor, that is stealing. That is stealing. And anybody else would have been called to the police and been up in the court on Monday morning for stealing a bottle of wine from the restaurant, Tory Whanau, but you're the Wellington mayor. And then she walked away, and do you know what? She didn't pay her bill. So she apparently, she came up with this cockamamie story. The next day, she reckons that she got up out of bed and she had an epiphany of wanting to be a little goody two-shoes, and she went down to the restaurant and paid the bill. But what I'm thinking, allegedly, in my Kate Floss mind, is that somebody gave her a phone call and they said, "If you don't go down and pay that bill right now, we're coming to prosecute you." And she hightailed it out of her house or her apartment or whatever it is that's paid by us, because she's the Wellington mayor. And she hightailed it down to that restaurant, and she paid the bill afterwards. And see, this is what they always do. See, Kiri Allan declared the donation afterwards, didn't she? See, Meng Foon defended the money that he got for his hotel after he got caught. They're all keeping quiet, and then after they get caught, they're saying, and that's why all our criminals are going up to the courthouse, because this is what the judges are basically saying down at the courthouse. They're saying, look, all these crimes, rapes in Parliament, theft in Parliament, corruption in Parliament, the judges are saying, basically, because everybody's saying, why aren't the judges prosecuting these criminals that are coming up before the courts? Well, basically, the judges are sending a message. They're basically saying all these things that the public are doing, you're doing them in Parliament and in your government offices, and you're all making your own remedy without going to the court. You're not going to the court. You're saying, I did this crime and I'll go and fix it, and I won't go to the court. And then you're keeping your government job and you're being paid afterwards, and you're laughing at the public. So the courts are saying, from now on, when you send criminals to us, we're not going to prosecute them. If it's a crime that has been committed in your Parliament and you send a member of the public into the court, we're not going to give them prison sentences anymore. Because of you, Parliament. You are the criminals, and you are not being held to account. So that's Tory Whanau. Moving on from Tory Whanau. Tory Whanau says that she asked if she regretted. Tory Whanau was asked, do you regret taking the bottle of wine and not paying the bill? And she says, Tory Whanau says, I have no regrets about supporting the hospitality industry. Yep. So, did she just, what I would be wondering here now, did she go to the hospitality industry or specifically the restaurant where she didn't pay the bill and she tried to steal a bottle of wine, did she pay them a brown envelope? I'm not saying she did, but did she pay them a brown envelope to support their hospitality industry so that they would keep quiet and not take her to the court? You have to wonder about that. So the next one on the list is Mecca. Oh, here's the Kiri Allan crash. I just wanted to show you this Kiri Allan crash. Right, here it is. Now, here's an interesting thing. All right, here is the picture. This is what I was looking for. I'll just come back to this for a bit. Here is the picture of the car that she crashed into. And you can see it's all dented here on the side and the tire. But there's actually another, now that is, you can see that red bit there. And there's actually another picture. Oh, now I've lost it. I just had it. See if I can find this other picture of her car crash. Now you can see that there's no pictures of the car crash, but I don't think, well, this here is not a picture of the car. It may be. It may be a picture of another car, but this one here is from the World News and from Jamaica Gleaner. And they said that, New Zealand's Justice Minister resigns after facing criminal charges in the car crash. And then this was a contributed photo. So it depends if the person contributed a false photo, or it depends if they perhaps saw this red bit here. It depends. Can we see? We can't really see the whole. There's no red on the top there, so we know that that is not. But what I can tell you that is absolutely fact is that overseas newspapers are reporting on our Justice Minister being drunk and getting into a car crash in the middle of the night. Now, the next one that we've got here is a suspended minister, Mecca Waitiri. Mecca Waitiri stood down after allegations of manhandling another staff member. Ardern said that the punishment for Mecca would be that she will take training on how to manage staff, and from Kate Floss, how to manage staff without beating them up. The police were involved, so they reckon that there was no manhandling, but the police were involved. And the police spoke to the victim, and after investigating, they decided not to press charges. So there must have been some manhandling going on for the police to be involved. And so the police were actually called, and then all that's happened here is that the victim decided not to press charges. Was there a brown envelope pushed under the table? But here we have another Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern. We've got Chris Hipkins backing up Woods. We've got Paul Hunt, the Commissioner of the Human Rights, backing up Ming Foon. We've got Jacinda Ardern backing up Mecca Waitiri. And this is the problem here, is that the leaders, the buck stop with the leaders, because the leaders are not holding the ministers to account. The leaders are saying, yes, he did that, but I feel sorry for him because of this and this. Yes, she did that, but. And then all of it comes to none of the ministers are being held to account. Now, Now, getting back to Kiri Allan, where we had the donations problem, we had the drunken driving, crashing problem, and so I hope I haven't just thrown out the one that I had, but anyway, I'll read it to you. So this story here is about Kiri Allan, and this story here is from the Stuff, from Stuff New Zealand, and I'll see if I can find the author so that I can express to you who is the author, because I'm not the author. And so this story was by Andrea Vance. And this one here was in 2023. Kiri Allan, the drunken driving donation non-disclosing person that Chris Hipkins has spent almost his entire short term. He's only been in for a month or two. He's spent the entire term defending Kiri Allan, the Justice Minister, and his antics. Just for that, he should stand down. Apparently, Kiri Allan yelled and screamed at a public servant, and the public servant had decades of experience, and apparently Kiri Allan yelled and screamed so loudly that staff in the office heard the telephone call. Not only that, the official spoke on anonymity. The agency... Another interaction with younger staff members, both from government agencies and beehives in a meeting, they've seen her absolutely berate another official for 24 minutes on another occasion. Now, Kiri Allan, if you go and look, I did look at an article where she was doing the video, the man interviewing, and she lies. Every time she opens her mouth, she tells a lie. She wouldn't know the truth from a lie if it spat her right in the face. She is a liar. And when you see her television interviews, you will see her lying and lying. The only time that she will tell the truth, even then, even when the evidence is staring her in her face, she still won't tell the truth. And do you know what she's going to call up next? She's going to call up the mental health card, and she's going to call up the Maori card. She's going to call up the tribe card. That's what she's going to do. Kiri Allan, and as they always do it now, if you want to call up the mental health card, if you were mentally unfit to be in Parliament for the first place, then you never should have been there. You never should have. If you knew that you had addiction issues, and you knew that you had mental health issues, and you knew that you had marriage problems and all sorts of things, if you knew all of that, then you should not have gone into the Parliament. And if you did go into Parliament and you said that you could handle Parliament even with your mental health issues, right? When Parliament says that you've got to leave because of your mental health issues, your addictions and all of this, you don't get to call in that card as an excuse for what you've done. No, you should be fully and absolutely and fully accountable to the strongest accountability under the law that you should be able to, because you should not have taken that job, Kiri Allan. You had a good lawyer's job, and you should not have taken that job. And when you took leave for a week to deal with your mental health issues, because you had done things that you should not have done, and you wanted to avoid being held to an account in front of the camera, do you know what? You should not have been allowed to come back. Chris Hipkins is... So now we've got Kiri Allan on abusing members of Parliament as well. And then we've got, now we want to go back to Prime Minister Mecca. After Prime Minister Mecca had sorted out all the dirty details, after she'd sorted out all the dirty details, right, now this story here, make sure we've got, this is from Stuff, and the writer is, let's see if we can get the writer. The writer is Henry Cooke, Cooke, Henry Cooke with an E, and Tracy Watkins, all right? So they are the writers, and there is Mecca Faitiri, and it's just as well that I'm over here in Thailand, because if I was in New Zealand, I'd probably be beaten up by one of her cronies. Now, let's go and look. She came back to the parliament, and they said, so after speaking to the victim, that they are not pressing charges against the victim. Well, let's just see why the victim, we don't know who this victim is, but perhaps the victim had decided that they didn't want to prosecute because they might have been a member of Minister Centre of Bullying. She's come back to Parliament, and she says here, they said she will be back next week. She's humbled by the support that she has received since being stood down for her physical attack of the staffner. But she was absent from the Parliament, but she's coming back briefly. Now listen to this. She's coming back briefly to join members of her tribe for the passage of the iwi and hapu of Te Oti Wairoa Claims Settlement Bill. Hundreds of Wairoa people were at the Parliament for the final reading of the bill. Now you're going to know why the victim stood down and said, oh, we really want you to be back in Parliament, and I'm not going to press charges, because Mecca Faitiri, now listen to this. She came back to the cheers and support of family and tribal members, for while she was in Parliament, she attained the passage of the Te Wairoa Settlement Bill. All right, now this includes 100 million in cash, all Crown Forest land which belongs to the Anglo-Saxon people. It all belongs to the Anglo-Saxon people of forest land worth 2.5 million being ripped out of the Anglo-Saxon people who own all that land. We bought that land, we paid for that land, we planted that land for decades and many, many generations of our families, and they took it, removed it from us, and they gave it to them. They reckon it was worth 2.5 million, but I would add billion to that. And then another Crown Forest of 3.5 million and others was given. Now, if you want to know where that information is, you can just go and Google it there. The Te Wairoa Iwi and Hapu Deed of Settlement Summary. And this will tell you all of the background to that case, all of the people involved, but cultural redress fund, the deed of settlement. Now, I read here that part of the settlement was that they do not have to disclose all of the settlement. They only have to disclose some of it. There are 25,000 members. There are apparently 6 natural groups negotiating the settlement, but she was the main negotiator. Now, this all covers the Gisborne areas. And where do you think Kiri Allan is? She's in Gisborne. And where do you think Ming Foon has his hotel in? He's from Gisborne. They're all coming out of Gisborne. So if you want to go and research that, you can. I'm just giving you a very short coverage of all of the people in our Parliament that are committing crimes and they're not being held to account. Now, that was the last one that I had to tell you about. All right, so I'll just read you the list of these ones. I'm done with all of those. You can go and search it. So just on that list there, we've got Michael Wood, okay, who has shares in the airports and shares in the telephone companies, and he's voting according to policies that are going to benefit both of his companies. And even if he relinquishes shares, his wife is involved with those companies. We've got Stuart Nash, who was involved with companies, and he's reporting back to companies who's voting for what and who's voting against those companies, so they're not going to get any brown envelopes from those holdings anymore. The fraud here is absolutely off the charts. Then we've got Meng Foon, who is involved with all of the emergency housing, and he actually just happens to own a hotel that he bought, and then he's allocated 5 units to the government to use. He can get paid around $35,000 a month or more. And we found out that he's giving political donations to people that are coming into the parliament. He doesn't care which one he gives the donations to. He's given it to them all. And we also know that Paul Hunt is defending him. We know that Chris Hipkins is defending all of them. And we know that Paul Hunt, and what else did he did the donate? Oh, and he's made the political donations as well as getting funding. He is the one who is involved with the people who are giving the funding to the emergency housing, and he managed to allocate a contract to himself. Kiri Allan has been stood down. She did the accepting the donations and not disclosing it. She's the Justice Minister, and she's been drunk driving, and she's been crashing in the government. Well, I think allegedly, but may not be, the government vehicle, the government electric vehicle may be the vehicle that she was driving. She's also been accused of and had problems with abusing people in the parliament. We've got Tory Farnell, the Wellington mayor, who's turning up at the restaurants, allegedly stealing bottles of wine from empty tables and not paying her bill, and going home and saying, "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? I am Kate Floss, and I intend to report on all this." We've got Mecca Faitiri accused of actually beating someone up in the parliament and abusing parliament, and the victim and the police never prosecuted the case, and she was brought back to parliament, and we know that she was instrumental in getting a settlement for her own family, for her own tribe. She went into parliament. These people are going into parliament so that they can manipulate government policy so that their businesses can prosper. Now, I've got this little video here from Brian Tamaki, and I'm just going to play a little bit to what he says. Actually, previously to that, he mentioned, if you go and watch the whole Brian Tamaki video, which I will post up for you, if you go and watch his whole video, he was talking about a young man called Jaden Meyer. Now, Jaden Meyer, he was at 16 years old, he had raped 4 women. He raped 4 women, and he went to the court, and the Crown Office and the Attorney General and the probation officer requested that the judge did not give him a prison sentence. He got something like 9 months home detention, and there were many, many protests because he got, apparently, he might have said that he raped them because of the way that they were dressed. Anyway, the Judge Hardy Boys, I think, or anyway, a judge sentenced him to home detention, which he was 2 months in his home detention, and because of all the protests and everything, and those people should have lost their jobs, Crown and the probation officer went back to re-prosecute the case because they said that it was an unjust sentence. They had caused the unjust sentence. But let's remember that there was a rape back in Parliament as well that was never prosecuted. And the person that reported that rape, see, there's a bit of getting back. The person that reported the rape in Parliament, all right, he reported it as a rape, but it didn't come under the criteria as being a rape. It came under the criteria as being a molestation, but not a rape. And because he said it was a rape, they prosecuted him for that. And there was a huge, nobody cared about the molestation. All they cared about was that he didn't say the correct words. He got absolutely hammered. And then there was molestation of people going on in the Parliament of New Zealand. And then so basically they said to the judges, can you let this guy off? And so the judge says, well, if you want me to do that, that's what I'm going to do, because I wouldn't want to be going against the Attorney General and the Crown Law Office. And then Crown Law came back and said, oops, can you go back and re-prosecute that? And then the judge said, well, you're 6 weeks out of time. And the judge has turned around and said, we might let you have it. We're not sure. But meanwhile, those 4 young ladies who were, by the way, those 4 young ladies were 15 years old. He must have raped them at separate times, but they were underage. The legal age in New Zealand is 16, and each of those were 15 years old. Although you do have to ask yourself the question, if they were, see, if a man has sex with a female and she's under 16, it comes under the statutory rape charge, even if she consents. If those 4 women decide to go and, listen up, males out there, if those 4 women decide to go and prosecute it at a later time, or their parents decide to prosecute it, even if they consented to it, see, we might not have the whole story. Even if they consented to it, if the parents decide to prosecute, it comes under statutory rape. So I'm not sure here. It could be that is the case, and that might be why they said that he should not go to prison. So I'm not sure the full story here. I would definitely have to investigate more. But anyway, that's what happened there, and then they went back. Now, Brian Tamaki came in, and he was actually talking about that. But he then goes on to say, I don't know how to get rid of that, but so I'll just open it like that. He then goes on to talk about that the parliamentarians are not accountable. And then straight after that, he goes on to say that he's going to fix the criminal justice system. But I don't think he needs to fix the criminal justice system. I think that what he needs to do, and he said he's going to put all these people into the prison, is what he said. But I think what needs to happen is that the parliamentarians need to be held to account. He starts out saying that, and then he talks about putting all the prisoners into the prison. Let's have a look what Brian Tamaki's saying.
I want to tell you something, New Zealand, your voters. You're going to go back and vote the same people in who have given us this mess. There's no difference between Labour and National. Basically, them, along with Winston Peters, who just celebrated their 30 years of New Zealand first being in existence, those 3 parties primarily have been in Parliament, and under their watch, we've watched crime escalate to the present crime rates we have today. Back in 2017, we had something like only 119 ram raids. Then over the next following 4 or 5 years, it's risen to something like 869 ram raids. That's a 650% plus increase from 2017 with Labour, New Zealand First and Greens in government. Winston was the Deputy Minister for 4 years while ram raiding was going on, thriving, and the rates of those ram raids were increasing to a point where it's just totally unacceptable. We have to have a better law and order policy. I want to tell you that Freedoms New Zealand has a law and order policy that will be tough on crime. We want to clean the streets up of crime, clean our towns and our cities, and make our country safe again for every New Zealander. We will reduce the ram raiders. We will make sure that sentencing is fair and just, and making sure that those who commit these crimes will not only pay for their crimes, they will also make sure that they are not let loose in society again on any type of detention or home detention or some type of oranga tamariki, which doesn't work as well, program to continue their crime without ever having any accountability to their rehabilitation. So we will be bringing out our policy very shortly, and I believe all New Zealanders will be happy with this policy. It's one that will have...
So that one there is talking about, he says that we have to hold the criminals to account. And he said 3 parties and the crime has gone up. But what I'm saying is, never mind the criminals. It is time that we held the parliamentarians to account, and that's exactly what Kate Floss is going to do. Now, I will tell you about my case because I've had the Crown Law. Now, I also ran it. See, I ran out of time on my case because Crown Law had mucked me around, and my case ended up running out of time, and Crown Law wrote in and asked if they could get that I should be thrown out because my case had run out of time. And I had showed them cases where Crown Law had been out of time and the judges had let them through. So, see, this is the problem. When Crown Law themselves is out of time in a case, this is my point. When Crown Law is out of time in a case, all right, and then they ask the judge for a special favour to let them keep that case because they were out of time, right? So when other people like me get out of time and we come forward and we say, well, we were out of time, but you gave it to him, so you've got to give it to me. Someone was molested in Parliament and they were not held to account, and I have molested on the outside and I don't want to be held to account either. Somebody is receiving monies that they're not supposed to be receiving, and I'm on the outside and I've received monies. I'm working in one company and I'm receiving monies from another company, so I should not be held to account. I'm in one company and I'm taking money from that company and I'm giving it to another company that I own. The parliamentarians are doing that, so why should I be held to account? See, every single thing. I beat up someone on the outside and a parliamentarian beats someone up on the inside. So why should I be held to account when they're not being held to account? And that is exactly what I did. So here is my out of time, and the judges are listening to me. I went into the court. I don't know which one to do first, but I did go into the court, right? And what I did was I called in, there's me, Catherine Ann Sextus. I called in Jacinda Kate Arradurn, Chris Farfoy, Andrew Little, Ashley Bloomfield, and I called them in a long, long time ago, a very long time ago. And I named it the Battle of Kate because I'm Kate Floss, and my name is Catherine, which is Kate, and Jacinda is a Kate, and there's a couple of other Kates involved with this as well. So I did go into the Parliament, and I called them into the Parliament, and then it got out of time, and Peter Gunn had called in. He had said, she's out of time. And as I've just shown you there, she's out of time, but, how do I move that? Right, she's out of time, but the judge has said here, Kate Floss is, I'm doing great. I've got some great people down at the courts. I'm not going to be saying the courts are corrupt. I'm going to be saying Parliament's corrupt. And so we should be allowed to call the parliamentarians under the 1688 Bill of Rights. We should be allowed to call the parliamentarians to the court by ourselves, and if they're in office and they're receiving government funding and government lawyers and all of those things, all paid by us. See, when they step down, they still get a salary. They're still getting paid, you see, and they're not even working. They're getting paid for doing nothing. And so we should be able to. So Justice Brown had ordered that this application for extension of time will be determined on papers by 2 judges sitting at the Court of Appeal in Wellington on the 16th of October. And he said that it'll be done on papers, but the respondent has not refuted what I said, because that's exactly what I said. I said, hey, if Crown Law can get an out of time reinstated, and I showed them the case because the case was specifically Peter Gunn. I said, well, I can too. So we've got 2 judges that are going to come and look, and they're going to say if I can or can't. So we'll be very interested to be watching this case, won't we, Mary Peans? My lovely Mary Peans and my Oreo team. Don't forget, remember the Oreo team that is there with me all the way. The Oreo team and my Mary Peans. And then they said the applications have been received. The respondent has not indicated that they intend to file any submissions against what I've said. If the leave is granted for the out of time, then a new fixture date will be set for the hearing of the substantive appeal. So all my cases go. Now, I did want to show you this 16th of October is a very, very auspicious day. Now, when I went to make my case, what I did was, I had said, part of my case, that I had said, no. I had said, did I say, never mind what I said. All right, just go to here. I had said that the individual in the common law right must be able to enter the High Court to hold the ministers to account. Here is a partial list of all, or it should be many of the ministers that have not been held to account, and many remain in Parliament today. Now, I could add to that list. I should have added to that list Mika, I'll add them in a minute. So these are the ones that I've got. I've got Neelan Chowdhury, Chris Barfoy, the ex-Justice Minister, Tato Phillip, Alpito Williams CO, who is the Minister of Courts, Golritz Garaman, Roger McClay, Joe Williams, Mylan Britch, Jenny Salisa, Chai Chua, Pangsy Wong, Ricardo Menendez, David Garrett, Graham Moss, Raymond Huo, Stephen Ching, Jiang Yang, Graham Capel, Darren Hughes, Mihi Sharma, Nandor Stephen, Tank Zos, Michael Wood, Meng Foon, Kiri Allan, the present Justice Minister, Judith Collins and her husband, Nania Mahuta, Stuart Nash, Chanel Lau, Kamal Sepuloni, and many, many more. And we can also add to the list Mecca Faitiri, and we can add to the list Tory Farnow, and we can add to the list, we've already got all of those. And the 16th of October, remember that I told you that the judge said that 2 judges are going to decide if my out-of-time case can continue to go forward. And it was a very interesting thing from Brian Tamaki, because he's just let me know of another case where the Crown have said that we're out of time, and can you give us a wink, 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 nudge, nudge, give us a leg up. Well, Peter Gunn already got a nudge, nudge, wink, wink for a leg up in a murder trial, and they're asking for a nudge, nudge, wink, wink in a rape trial, and Brian Tamaki has just let me know that this is what the Crown in the Parliament are doing when their case is out of time. They're asking for a reprieve and the judges are giving it to them on occasion. But now I'm out of time. If these two judges don't give me my out of time, see, this is what a wicked web you weave. I'll just make a mention for my lovely father, John Leslie Sextus, on my 13th birthday, which was just 1 year before he died. On my 13th birthday in my whole entire life, my father had never ever given me a birthday cake. But on that birthday, he gave me a birthday cake. And on the birthday cake was a spider's web. It was a chocolate cake with a white spider's web covering it. And I think that my father, there was a reason, John Leslie Sextus. And then the 16th, now I've got something what I sent to the court. I sent something very important to the court. These are all the judges. This is called the Battle of Cape, right? And then these are the judges that have been involved with my case. I've had the toppest judges, but the 16th, what I had said here is this man here, Tamati Wakinene, who is my spirit guide. Now, Tamati Wakinene, I consider him to be my king of New Zealand, and he, Iraoira Patu Oni, called himself the father of the Pākehā. That was the father of the Anglo-Saxon people that came into New Zealand in 1843 on the St. Pauli ship. All of these people here that you see here are all of these people here that you see here are the people of the St. Pauli ship. They're the people of the St. Pauli ship. And this is Tamati Wakinene, and he is on every king and every queen's coin ever minted in New Zealand, has had his face on it since from 1847 through to 2000 or maybe 2020. His face has been on everyone, Tamati Wakinene. Now, he ascended to be subjected to the rules of the 1688, that he said, I will be accountable the same as Queen Elizabeth, and he did that on the 16th of October in 1847. Tamati Wakinene became a government worker, and he was basically the Maori king of New Zealand, and he was paid a government salary just like Queen Elizabeth is paid. And he ascended to his throne legally on the 16th of October in 1847. And my birthday is on the 16th of October in 1964. Iraoira Patu Ona is the father of the Pākehā. These are some people that were involved. I won't worry about them, but this is the St. Pauli, and there's Kate Floss praying to God, okay? And I'll just quickly send you my song. We already pay them to come to the court. Oh. It's in the cabinet manual. No, I won't. So there you go. That's the end for Kate Floss. It's a great video, and see you later. Hold the Parliament. Don't hold the criminals to account. Hold the Parliament to account first. The Parliament has got to be held to account. When you do something wrong in Parliament, you don't only get to step down. You are stripped of all of your benefits. You are stripped of your special pensions that you get. You are stripped of anything, any benefits that you get out of that Parliament. You are stripped of the whole lot. When you are given such a privilege to be on a salary of $400,000 a year or $200,000 a year, when you are making double and triple and quadruple the salary that the New Zealand workers are making and taking their taxes to pay for your salary. You have to be far above them, and you must be held to account, and you lose all of those rights. You lose all your rights, you lose all your privileges when you don't do what you're supposed to do, when we're slogging our guts out working in factories, when we're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to walk in the rain to go to work so that you can take monies from our labours to pay for your fancy salaries and your fancy cars so that you can drive around drunken in the middle of the night, or you can go and molest people, or you can beat people up. Well, none of us are allowed to do it. You can take money from our company and give it to your company and not let us know that you're the one doing that. When you're doing all that, no, you lose all your rights, you lose all your privileges. Menfoon, you don't get to keep your government contract anymore. You may, if you hadn't disclosed it when you're in Parliament, you may have been able to, but it wasn't done adequately. What you did was wrong. You're taking money. You should not get to keep that money. None of you should ever be permitted to hold a government position, not on the Maori Trust, not on the maraes, not in the Parliament, not in the courts, not in the police, not in the social welfare, not in the universities. No, you lose all your privileges, or you go into the prison. That's your choice. You go into the prison and you come back out and you've done your penance and you get your privileges back, because that's what happens to us. See, when we commit a crime, we go to the court, the police take us to the court says you get a year in prison, we go to the prison, we do our duty, we do our prison, we come out, and if we're very good for 10 years, our criminal record is gone and the penance has been done because we paid our debt to society. But parliamentarians, how have you paid your debt to society? When are you going to pay debt to society for all the crimes that you're committing in our parliament? When are you going to pay the debt? There's only two ways to pay the debt to society. You either go to prison and you come back and you can have your privileges back, or you step down and you are stripped of every single privilege that you have, which includes that you never ever get to work for any government department again. We have got to hold the Parliament to account, and Kate Floss is leading the charge. And to all those out there that are thinking about having me topped off, I've done the Muslim prayers. And I've got it, and I shall advertise it. I've done the Muslim prayers, and I've sworn my allegiance to Allah, and I've sworn my allegiance, and I'm also a Protestant, and I'm a staunch, proud Protestant, and I've also sworn the allegiance to King Tamati Wakanene, and Her Majesty Queen Victoria, and Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, and His Majesty King Charles III, Rex, and Camilla Bold, Princess Camilla, Queen Camilla, and I've sworn my allegiance, and it doesn't matter if you kill me now because it's already in the court, and if it goes off the court, my Oreo team will take it, and if my Oreo team doesn't take it, I've got two sons, and they will continue it in the courts. This case is in the court. It's not going to go away. If anything happens to me, the case is not going to go away. It's already in the courts. So it ain't going away. We're holding the parliamentarians to account. We want you to step down if you're involved with any of these things, and we want you to pay your penance and strip yourself of all of your privileges, and nothing less is going to be acceptable. All right? So there you go. And that's it.